But today, as Parshat VAYERA, and today, as Election Day in America, I want to focus on a very, very specific part of the narrative that leads up to the story of the binding of Isaac, which is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. It is important for us to understand what exactly the issue was of Sodom and Gomorrah. What is the definition of Sodom and Gomorrah? I want to read a section of Pirkei Avot. This is from the Mishnah, Ethics of Our Ancestors, chapter 5, Mishnah 10. Listen to this. There are four types of character in human beings. One that says, mine is mine and yours is yours. This is commonplace. It's an in-between way of being. But some say that's the way Sodom acted. The measure of Sodom and Gomorrah, the city that was worthy of destruction in God's eyes at the beginning of this week's Parsha, is measured for being yours is yours and mine is mine. That's average, but Pirkei Avot goes further and says some people say that that's the measure of Sodom. But doesn't it make sense? Wouldn't you appreciate someone who built a good fence so you could be good neighbors? To see good boundaries as a way of being good neighbors? What's yours is yours, and what's mine is mine. The problem with that is that it leads to not really being connected at all with your neighbors. It's a very big fence if everything that's yours is yours and mine is mine, which means that what concerns you does not concern me. The Torah is a response to that kind of approach. A good example for that is the rule of the ma'akeh in Hebrew. A ma'akeh is, in English, or Latin anyway, a parapet, which means a fence that we are called to build around our roofs when you build a house. So that, God forbid, someone would be on your roof, they won't fall off. You could ask a simple question: what are you doing on my roof? And the answer is, that's not the point. We must take precautions to protect each other because of what could happen, knowing that physical space, property boundaries, those don't exist in God's imagination. In God's imagination, we are our brothers and sisters' keepers, and that's it. Love your neighbor as yourself tells you that you might have a nice fence, but your neighbor is your responsibility too, and you are theirs. The breakdown of society is when we no longer think that way. Sodom and Gomorrah showed itself as a community to be uncaring, to not welcome in strangers, to not take care of each other. That's the measure of Sodom and Gomorrah. That is a city we call Sodom and Gomorrah. And God forbid American society allows itself to become so bifurcated based on vote and political preference that we think that the other doesn't matter, that the neighbor that we have is not the neighbor we wish and not the neighbor we'll care for. That's the measure of Sodom and Gomorrah, and that would make us worthy of disintegration because of how little we care for each other. I know I'm on a soapbox, but rabbis do this sometimes. And America is at a fragile precipice. We are called to notice it and pray and seek the welfare of our government, without which, we are told elsewhere in Pirkei Avot, people will tear each other apart. Now, that can be true when there's self-determination and the government, let's say, would have Jewish values in it. We can see in Israel that those guiding principles are not necessarily the case in a normal functioning democracy when people do what they must as politicians to gain and not lose power. And when I say do what they must, what I really mean is do what they feel willing to do. Having no values, moral values guiding them, if it's all about political power, then people will scream at each other, dehumanize each other, as we are seeing in campaigns around America today. It is our call, our mandate, our responsibility as a Jewish community not to vote in one direction. Most issues in Jewish tradition have at least one opinion. And in American Jewish jurisprudence, it was actually Louis Brandeis and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, both of blessed memory, who as Supreme Court justices mastered the art of dissent. We do not believe in some fundamentalism that needs to win. That's actually a terrible triumphalism that would itself tear at the fabric of society. But what we are watching is that politicians are willing to do whatever it takes to win, including lie, including delegitimize the institutions of the state, including dehumanize people who are waiting online to vote, including restricting votes to make it harder for people in, let's just say, less privileged positions to take the time to vote. Election day should be an American holiday to give everyone the chance to do what civic obligation mandates us to do, which is show up and be counted. Ancestors of ours have died because they couldn't self-determine, because they had no voice in society. Sodom and Gemorah blinks and looks the other way at a problem like that. And we know that Sodom and Gemorah, while championed and defended by Avram, didn't even have 10 righteous people. Society became so infected with self-concern that all they could do was say, mine is mine, and yours is yours, and I don't bear responsibility for you. And the saddest thing is, I don't think you bear responsibility for me. Vulnerability is just a matter of time. We take turns being the one in need. How dare we? How dare we allow American society to self-degrade in the way that we've been witnessing? Today is election day, friends. You show up and vote. That is a mitzvah. It's not a choice. And the real work begins tomorrow again. Because in order to build a beloved community, you have to know your neighbor and your local politics. Again, not from a fundamentalist place. Nowhere will you hear me say, this is how you must vote. But you will hear me say many times during this talk that you must vote. You must vote. You must vote. Because if you don't, Sodom and Gomorrah is our destiny. If you do not vote. Now, I didn't say, if the way you vote doesn't turn out to win, we are Sodom and Gomorrah. Because I don't go that way either. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you lose. The urgency of this democratic process is very clear. And we as Jews in America have influence. Starting with the individual vote, moving towards communal organizing, towards building coalitions with values-based, faith-based partners, trying to make sure that the use of faith in the public sphere is done ethically, holding leaders to account, being brave enough to talk about politics in shul, not yelling about politics, but engaging in the conversation. Imagine if our vote could save one life. And now realize you don't have to imagine it. Your vote can save many lives. Your vote determines whether or not we go to war. Your vote determines whether or not there's adequate protection for houses of faith in the midst of violence. Your vote determines whether or not a mensch occupies a position of power. Your vote models for our children and our children's children how they will understand the history of American Judaism in particular. Vote. Because the opposite of voting is Sodom and Gomorrah. The opposite of voting is selfishness, self-concern. And yeah, there are 4 types of character, says Pirkei Avot. One that says, mine is mine and yours. Zo midah benonit, says the Hebrew. That's an in-between way. That's average. We dare not accept mediocrity when it comes to human dignity. Show friends. Show up. Vote. Thank the poll workers. Thank the people who are there to help. Show up. And then let's get to work tomorrow. That's our work. Robin, you ask a question, and I'm going to allow your question to be the last thing we think about before singing our way into a good and vital day. You said, is there a mensch in politics? I'm not going to point to one candidate, but I'm going to tell you this. Only menches should be in positions of influence because our children are watching. And we need dignity to be the thing we talk about when we watch our leaders struggle to make good decisions. Is there? That's a descriptive question. Should there be? Must there be? That's our question. Friends, please get out and vote. do what you can to support others getting out to vote, and please thank everyone involved in the process, and then let's get back to work tomorrow. Let's sing our way into a good day, friends. Ya la 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 la, diddy ya la la la, diddy ya la 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 la, ay ay la la la, ay la 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 la, diddy ya la la la, diddy ya la 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 la, ay ay la la la. Bless you, friends. See you tomorrow.